The stars burned cold above the craggy surface of the planet Lygos IV, but below, in the heart of the Imperial Galactic Assembly's War Council, a storm was brewing. For decades, the Lygosians, an ancient, technologically superior species, had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. Their empire spanned hundreds of star systems, and their military was unrivaled. Their reputation was built on their ability to crush any species foolish enough to challenge them. The Lygosians believed they were the apex of evolution, their civilization a testament to their superiority over all others. But something had changed in the last few decades, something they couldn't explain. Humans. They were still a relatively young species, by galactic standards, having only recently made their first forays into interstellar travel. The Lygosians had dismissed them at first, as they did with all newcomers. Primitive, unworthy of attention. But then, the attack started. First, it was a few skirmishes on the edges of their territories. Small ships, unarmed, firing on military installations. A nuisance at worst. But soon, the scale of the threat began to grow. The humans had fought back in ways no one expected. Tactics that were unorthodox, unpredictable, and above all, brutal. There was a rage in their actions, a ferocity that struck fear into the hearts of the most battle-hardened Lygosian commanders. And then the worst happened. The humans destroyed one of the Lygosians' largest fleets, a fleet that had been preparing for a campaign to crush a neighboring rebellion. No one had ever done that before, not even the fiercest of galactic adversaries. And the humans did it with what appeared to be primitive ships, their technology far inferior to the hyper-advanced warships of the Lygosian Empire. The council room on Lygos IV was filled with tension. The air crackled with anxiety as the supreme commanders, representatives of each of the Lygosian military divisions, argued amongst themselves. Why are we even debating this? Commander Trixa, the leader of the fleet's reconnaissance division, hissed, her multi-limbed form bristling with irritation. We've already lost 2 ships to these humans. Our intelligence shows they are not to be underestimated. We must respond with full force. I agree, replied Vokar, the war general, his voice steady but cold. His tall, angular body stood rigidly, his dark green skin barely showing any sign of emotion. These humans have proven their resolve, but we cannot underestimate their desperation. They are not a species we can conquer easily. This is not a simple rebellion we can crush with force. We must approach this with careful strategy, or we risk everything. But we are the Lygosians, Trixa spat, her mandibles clicking in disdain. We have crushed entire civilizations in the past. We have also made mistakes, Vokar interjected sharply. And right now, the humans are not our greatest enemy. They have merely forced us to reveal something about ourselves, something we should have realized long ago. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Vokar. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, his sharp gaze locking with each of the commanders present. We are not invincible. The words hung in the air like a terrible weight. The Lygosians were used to being the dominant force in the galaxy. The thought of their own vulnerability was almost unthinkable, but Vokar's words struck deep into the heart of their fears. Trixa, still seething, scowled at him. And yet, they are still weak. Their ships are outdated, their technology a fraction of ours. You've seen the reports, Vokar. They've taken down some of our fleet, but we have more ships, more power. It's only a matter of time before we wipe them out. Perhaps, Vokar said, his voice laced with caution. But you're missing the point. The humans do not fight like any other species we have encountered. They are unpredictable. They do not fight for glory or for power. They fight for something deeper. How do you know this? Trixa sneered, her antennae twitching with disdain. I've been watching them, Vokar said quietly. The humans have a capacity for something no one else has. A determination. A drive that cannot be easily extinguished. They will fight until every last one of them is dead, if necessary. The room fell into uneasy silence again. They don't stop, Vokar continued, no matter how many battles they lose. Every time we think we have them cornered, they come back with new tactics, new strategies, new weapons. They don't know the meaning of surrender, and that is something we've never faced before. Trixa's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting that they are more than we think? That somehow they have a strength we do not understand? I believe, Vokar said with a measured tone, that they are more dangerous than we realize. They have learned from their mistakes, and they are learning FA. Street. We may have more ships, more power, but they have something we do not. Resilience. The council room was plunged into a quiet unease. The truth of Voker's words settled like a cold shadow over the assembled commanders. "Then we must prepare," said Krell, the strategist. His deep voice cut through the tension. "We cannot let this vulnerability continue. We must strike before they learn too much. Send a fleet to destroy their homeworld before they can become a true threat." "Homeworld?" Voker's eyes glinted. "You think that will stop them?" "The humans are not like other species. They are not bound by one world. They have already shown that they are capable of far more than we assumed. We must not underestimate them again." "Then what do you propose?" Trixa demanded, her voice rising in frustration. "Do we sit back and let them grow stronger? Do we watch as they destroy us piece by piece? Are we to wait for them to strike the final blow?" "I'm not suggesting inaction," Vokar said with quiet intensity. "I'm suggesting that we use a different approach. We need to understand the humans before we strike. We need to know how they think, how they fight, what drives them. Only then will we be able to defeat them." Trixa snarled. "And how do you propose we do that?" Voker's expression was unreadable. "We sent someone to infiltrate them." The council members fell silent once more, the weight of Voker's suggestion hanging in the air. Trixa's eyes widened. "You want us to infiltrate the humans? Are you insane? We cannot simply—" Vokar raised a hand, silencing her. "I've already begun preparations. A team of my best operatives will go undercover, posing as humans. We will learn everything we can, from the inside, and then, once we understand them, we strike with precision." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. The idea of infiltrating the humans was unprecedented, risky, and, according to many, impossible. The Lygosians were not known for subtlety. They were a species of warriors, not spies. But Voker's mind was already set. The humans had forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about war. They had no choice but to evolve, to adapt. If they couldn't crush the humans with sheer force, they would have to outsmart them. The plan was set into motion. The infiltrators were chosen, an elite team of Lygosian operatives, trained in the art of deception, disguise, and infiltration. The operation, codenamed Darkveil, would begin within the next few weeks. But as Vokar sat alone in his quarters, reviewing the final preparations, a sudden, chilling thought struck him. What if the humans had already anticipated this? What if, just like they had done with every other threat, they had already outsmarted the Lygosians once again? And, if that were true, where did that leave them? The room's communication console beeped urgently, snapping Vokar from his thoughts. He glanced at the screen. It was a priority transmission from the human warship Vanguard. His breath caught in his throat as he opened the message. It was simple, and it was terrifying. "Are you sure you want to fight us?" It read, "Because we've been preparing for you. For a long time." Voker's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, all his doubts came rushing back. He wasn't sure anymore if the Lygosians were the ones hunting the humans, or if the humans had just turned the tables. And now, with a message like this, the real battle had just begun. The room felt colder than before. The transmission on Voker's screen blinked again, each word pounding against his skull like a drumbeat. "Are you sure you want to fight us? Because we've been preparing for you. For a long time." The human warship Vanguard was notorious across the galaxy, known for its unorthodox methods, its inscrutable commanders, and its uncanny ability to outmaneuver enemies far superior in strength. But now, with that message, Vokar understood something far more unsettling. The humans were no longer just a nuisance. They were no longer simply responding to Lygosian aggression. They had been preparing for this moment. Preparing for war. Voker's fingers hovered over the console, his mind racing as he pondered the implications of the message. How could they have known? "Activate the emergency protocol," Vokar ordered, his voice low but commanding. His mind was already calculating every possible scenario, every possible outcome. The humans had somehow gotten ahead of them. But how? He leaned in, studying the transmission source. It was encoded in a way that could only be decrypted by a handful of Lygosian systems experts. This wasn't a generic threat. It was tailored, specific. The humans had been studying them, planning their moves with a level of precision that no one had ever imagined. Vokar felt a knot tighten in his chest. Then, as if the universe itself were mocking him, the transmission FLI secured and shifted, revealing a new message. "You're late. Welcome to the game." The Lygosian War Council convened again in the wake of the cryptic message. Tensions ran high. Vokar stood in front of the gathered commanders, his sharp gaze sweeping over each face, noting the fear creeping into the eyes of even the most hardened soldiers. "We've been outwitted," Trixa said, her voice taut with disbelief. "This cannot be. We are the rulers of the galaxy. We've crushed every species that's ever dared to challenge us." Vokar met her gaze, unwavering. "The humans are different." Krell, the strategist, spoke up. "You believe this was part of their plan all along, Vokar? That they've known everything about us? About our tactics?" Vokar nodded slowly. "Yes, they've studied us for years. And now, they know our weaknesses. They know exactly how we think." The room fell silent again, a chill settling over them. The Lygosians prided themselves on their superior intellect, their advanced technology, their ability to predict the moves of any opponent. But against the humans, it was as if they were facing an entirely new kind of enemy, one that was not bound by the same rules, the same limitations. "If they've been preparing for us, we must assume they have already anticipated our next moves," Vokar said, his voice grim. "That means we can't just rely on brute force. We need to think like them, adapt, and quickly." "Do you have a plan?" Trixa asked, her voice skeptical. Vokar nodded. "We infiltrate their ranks. We'll send in our best operatives to get closer, to gather intel from within their own fleets. We'll learn their tactics, their strategies, everything we can. And once we know them inside and out, we'll strike." Trixa's mandibles clicked. "And what if they already know that, too?" "Then we prepare for the unexpected," Vokar said firmly. "We do not have the luxury of assuming we are the ones in control anymore. The humans have learned how to survive, to thrive. And now we must be willing to do the same." Meanwhile, on the far side of the galaxy, aboard the human warship Vanguard, Captain Sarah Keller stood at the helm, staring at the same message that had just been sent to the Lygosians. Her brow furrowed as she read the response from the Lygosians' supreme commanders. So confident, so assured of their superiority. They still didn't fully grasp it, did they? "They're coming for us," Lieutenant Daniels said, looking over Keller's shoulder at the latest reports. "Full mobilization. They're planning to hit us hard." Keller clenched her fists, her gaze never leaving the screen. "They'll be disappointed." She turned to Daniels, her face hardening. "They think they have the advantage. But they don't know what we've been doing. We've been preparing for this for years." Daniels nodded. "I just hope it's enough." "Oh, it's enough," Keller said, a determined edge to her voice. "Because unlike them, we've been learning. We've been adapting. And the Lygosians, they're about to learn what happens when you underestimate humanity." Back on Lygos IV, as the days passed and preparations for war escalated, Vokar continued his quiet analysis. Something was nagging at him, something deeper than the intelligence he was receiving about the humans' growing fleet. The humans had been preparing for years. But how? And where? A thought suddenly hit him, one that made his blood run cold. What if the humans had infiltrated them first? He quickly called for a meeting of his most trusted advisors. "We need to review all recent communications and intercepts from the human territories immediately. There's something we've missed." Hours later, as they sifted through the endless streams of data, the truth began to unfold, a hidden truth that had been staring them in the face all along. The humans had infiltrated them, in the form of sleeper agents, spies, and saboteurs embedded within the Lygosian fleet, planted there over the course of decades. Every military strategy, every tactical decision, every piece of intelligence had been slowly fed back to the humans. They knew them better than they knew themselves. Vokar stared at the data with growing horror. They'd been inside us for far longer than we ever realized. Just as Vokar began to process this new information, a single message blinked onto his screen. This one from an anonymous source. "You're not the only ones who can prepare. Welcome to the final phase of the war." The words seemed to hang in the air for a moment, before Vokar's console lit up with a fresh wave of intelligence. It was coming from the Vanguard. The humans were already on the move. They had anticipated every move the Lygosians had made, even before they had made it. The final phase. Vokar's breath caught. Was this it? Was this the beginning of the end for the Lygosian Empire? He stood up suddenly, his mind racing. The humans were no longer a threat to be destroyed. They were a force that had changed the rules of the galaxy itself. And now, the real battle, one that neither side could have ever predicted, was about to begin. The stars outside the windows of the War Council flickered in the distance, a constant reminder of the vastness of the galaxy. But it had never felt so small. Because now, for the first time in history, The Ligosians were the ones being hunted. And they had no idea what the humans had in store for them next.